Welcome to Connection Point, a podcast of Centerpoint Christian Church of Venice, Florida. I'm your host, Todd Bartley, and today we have Pastor Mitch Todd and Pastor Michelle Todd. We're happy to have them both here. If you're new to Centerpoint, Mitch is our senior pastor, and Michelle is our creative arts pastor. And we've been talking about getting together and doing this podcast for a while. Kind of the thought behind it was to create a space where we could share stories of you and how you came up in ministry, just to be able to connect with everyone that's out in the worship center on a Sunday. Everybody wants to get to know you a little bit more, and I thought this would be a great way to start that off.
Yeah, thanks for the idea of this. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to it. I like to talk, so this will be great.
Yeah, I know. And I know Michelle doesn't talk as much, so I'm really excited to get Michelle here and have her talking.
I will talk as often as I get a chance.
I'll try to let her talk some.
No, I have questions for her. So I know we all know, Mitch, that you're from Kentucky. You share your Kentucky stories quite often with us on Sunday mornings. I want to go back to your childhood in Kentucky. What was the young Mitch Todd like? What was your favorite thing to do as a kid?
Well, I mean, by far basketball. I mean, I lived, slept. I lived, sleep, drink, breathe basketball. I mean, I just loved it. My dad, he put together an incredible basketball court. I actually had a full court basketball court in my backyard with not like a real court, but just
not full length, but
no, it was still Kentucky.
It
was still like a basketball court over here, a basketball goal over here, and one over here. Yeah. And our house was the one that all the neighborhood kids came. My dad had big, huge floodlights out in the back behind the house, and we just played basketball morning and night. I mean, it was just all we did. I mean, it's all we did is play basketball all the time. I loved it.
Yeah.
So and then going in the woods.
So what was what's your favorite Kentucky player? You're a UK fan, right?
So, yeah, you guys, you would have to be from Kentucky to know this one, but probably my favorite player of all time was probably Kyle Macy. Kyle Macy was just an amazing, he's a sports broadcaster now.
Okay.
But he was my favorite. As a child, he was my model. I would shoot 100 free throws every single night in my backyard and pretend like I was Kyle Macy.
Is that what he was good? Is that what he was known for?
He was known for shooting
high percentage free throws.
Yeah, like 30-foot shots before the three-point line even was a thing in basketball.
Steph Curry before.
Yeah, he was Steph Curry before that.
Okay.
And so he was like my idol growing up, and it was just awesome. And Sam Bowie too. Sam Bowie's like 7'2" guy, and I actually ended up ministry years later. I became friends with him. So here was a guy that was like my idol as well that I later on got to become friends with. He went to our church. So
okay. Yeah. Michelle, how about you? Where were you born?
I was born and grew up in Illinois, central northwest Illinois, a teeny tiny town where my grandfather was the mayor, my uncle was the fireman EMT, and my other uncle was the foreman at the hammer factory. And if you weren't a farmer, then you worked at the hammer factory.
What's kind of the biggest town around there that most people would? Maybe
Macomb. There's a
That's
university.
Western Illinois, right?
Yeah, Western Illinois University is there. Some people may be familiar with that. Then about an hour or so away would be Peoria.
Okay.
So it was way
to the west.
Way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do growing up?
Not a lot.
What was your favorite?
Not a lot.
What was a Little Michelle like?
Little Michelle was the entertainer. I was the child who would put on penny shows for the neighborhood kids, and my sister and I would take our record player out and put a song on, and we would sing and dance. And the kids from the neighborhood would come to the backyard, sit on the blankets we'd lay out, and they would just watch us.
That was going to be one of my questions. We love listening to you on Sunday mornings. You have a beautiful voice. I was going to ask, when did you discover it? Like what, how did that passion lead you towards going into ministry?
So in the very small country church that I grew up in Illinois, one of the pastors had a wife who was big into music, and she really is the one who introduced me to music, and she taught me how to sing harmony lines. So elementary school, very early I started honing that and learning.
Okay. And then did you sing in church?
I sang in church. I think when my junior high age, they would do what they called youth days, and I would lead worship in the small church, which is kind of a big deal. If I had been an adult woman, I would not have been allowed to do that, but because I was a young lady in school, they would allow me to do that. It was a very, very conservative, old style type church.
Okay.
We both grew up in
Yes.
pretty
Legalistic.
yeah, churches. And then we got delivered from that.
We did.
So, Michelle, who would you say was the most influential person in your childhood that led you towards going into ministry?
It was my dad. My dad decided to go into the ministry when he was 40. He had been doing a variety of different jobs, and he just felt the calling of the Lord on his heart and left his regular job and moved us all from Western Illinois to Eastern Kentucky so he could go to school and get his degree at Kentucky Christian University. So just seeing
Okay.
the faith that my father had to pack up all of us, there were 3 daughters, and I went my junior and senior year into high school at an Eastern Kentucky high school, which was quite a culture shock for me. But and my dad's faith and feeling that calling and answering that call.
Okay, that was going to be one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how did you get from Illinois to Kentucky Christian?
That was
so
it.
that makes sense.
It does, yes. That's how we made that move. And then my dad and Mitch
I went to school with her dad.
graduated together.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And everybody was a little bit afraid of her dad. And so I wasn't really afraid of him. I was cocky and arrogant. And so I just remember her dad was in class with me. I had a class with him. And he was sitting right next to me. And I had already been kind of scoping Michelle out a little bit, you know. And music actually brought us together, too. So it's kind of interesting. But in class one day, I leaned over. I said, "Hey, John," I said, I was going to ask you if I can ask your daughter out on a date. And he just looked at me with this gruff voice, you know. He goes, "Well, send me a resume," you know. And so that's what he did. He said, "Send me a resume."
Yep.
So I went back to my dorm room. This is before computers. I mean, not before computers, before I had a computer anyway. And I got my old brother typewriter out.
The electric typewriter.
Yeah. And I literally typed up a resume and gave it to him. We were already kind of dating then anyway, but he didn't know that.
That's great. I thought you were just kidding when you told that story.
No, that's
true.
that
That
is a true story.
That is a true story.
I went back and typed up a resume.
What was on the
I
resume?
don't know. I don't know. I was just trying to think. Well, I don't know what in the world. I would love to have a copy of that.
I know, I would too.
I don't know if your dad kept it or not, but I would love to
that would
see
be
what
great.
in the world I wrote on that. I don't remember.
Yeah. So, what led you to Kentucky Christian?
Well, I started. I played basketball. I told you that. I played basketball all the way.
Yeah, you loved it.
Middle school, high school, and then I dropped out of the high school team in my junior year. I didn't play basketball anymore for them. I went and got a job, and so I got this job, and it was just it was great. I kind of regret not playing basketball, but then my pastor that I was working with, he was a pastor of our church, good friends of the family, good friends of my dad, an amazing man. And he really started pouring into me, and he asked me to preach when I was about 16 years old for the church one Sunday. And so I did. He helped me prepare the message, and it was about 9 minutes long. So I know some of the people at the church would probably like me to go back to that style again, but it was 9 minutes long. And I did this message for the very first time. And I just really kind of felt like, man, I wanted to be around Christian people. At that time, I didn't think I would go into ministry. That thought never even crossed my mind. I wasn't even at that spot in my life or I didn't know what I wanted to do. And, but I did know that I really wanted to grow in my faith and stuff. And so then they had this Christian college, and I had some friends that were talking to this that had graduated from Kentucky Christian College. And they said, what an incredible school it is. And they said, they have a really good basketball program there. And they said, with your basketball history, and it's not a scholarship program, they said, you'd be able to go up there and just show these boys how to play basketball. And so I went, I think I'll do that. I really want to get back to basketball. So I actually went to the college originally to play basketball. And I got there, and these kids were a lot better than I thought, and I was a lot rustier than I thought, and I was out of shape and everything. And so I started on the basketball team there for the college, and then I had an opportunity. I was singing in my dorm room one day, and the guy from Audio Adrenaline, some of you guys might know him, named Barry Blair. He heard me singing in my room, and he goes, "Hey, you got a decent voice. You should audition for this group called Destiny." And it's a group that travels for the school, and they go out and sing all over at different churches and conferences and stuff. And it's a scholarship program, so it would pay for your education. Well, I was paying for my school myself and work study programs and all this kind of stuff. And so I went and auditioned for this group, and I made it. And like I didn't know anything about music. I didn't grow up like Michelle. I didn't know. In fact, the only class that I ever failed was music class in 8th grade, because I probably just didn't even care, you know. And so here I went with all these people that had all this music background and everything. I didn't know anything about music, but I went and sang, and I made this team. And I couldn't decide if I wanted to do that or not, or play basketball. So I went to the basketball coach, and I said, "Hey, I have this opportunity to travel and sing with this group called Destiny." He knew, the group. And I said, "But my heart really is basketball. I just want to play basketball. I just wanted to get your input. Do you think that I have what it takes to get on the team and really make a difference in this basketball program here?" He goes, "Son, I believe I'd travel and sing if I were you." And so, honestly, that conversation led me down a completely different path in my life. I mean, my whole life. It was just like that was a changing point. That was a changing point. Now, there were several changing points, but that was one of the changing points in my life. So then I pursued music, and that's all I did. I mean, I was all music. I was traveling. I was singing. And then Michelle and I met.
Were you in that group
Yes.
as well?
Not yet.
He was in the year before I was, and then I auditioned and made the team. So we did travel and sing together with Destiny.
Okay.
So we were on the bus for we'd be on the bus for 10, 12 hours together, and Michelle and I'd just be sitting on the bus talking together, and there'd be other people, but I wanted to gravitate towards sitting with her.
This before or after the resume?
This was before the resume?
I don't know.
After? I don't know.
I can't remember that timeline.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
All right.
Because see, we were spending a lot of time together before I wrote the resume.
Okay.
That was more of a formal.
So that was a formal request.
A formal request.
Yeah. Kind of like the go to the father and ask for the hand in
it
marriage
was
request.
Yeah,
It's the prerequisite of
great.
that.
So Michelle, what's one of your favorite memories of that time traveling with Destiny and singing?
Oh, it was the era of choreography and singing. And I just remember having so much fun in our matching outfits, singing and learning the choreography, because it was the 80s. It was so much fun. I'm sure it would be very cringy right now if we looked back at it, but I enjoyed the theater of it, honestly.
We did a lot of theater along with the singing. So we'd go into these churches and we basically did an hour-long show, and I would be a person in different characters, and Michelle would be, and then we would sing. It'd probably be really bad. If we saw that now, I wouldn't even want you to see it, But
I've seen some of those, not yours, but
Right.
I've seen some of those things.
Yeah.
When you're watching reels
80s.
or something
Yes.
online, and you're like, "Oh my goodness,
Yep,
what were they
absolutely.
thinking?"
But we learned so much. I mean, we really grew up. We grew up together in a lot of ways. We grew up. It was a lot of fun. It's one of my best memories too.
And how many years did that go on? I mean, it sounds like at least a couple.
Well, 2 for Mitch, 1 for me.
Okay.
And then Mitch was graduating, and we decided to get married.
Yeah, I traveled with other groups, but that was the one where we met. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I thought. Honestly, that's what I thought I wanted to do full time, was be to travel and sing. But after doing that and being on the bus, I mean, even then, it was only 3 days out of the week for us. We got a pass on Fridays. We'd be gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
But every day we would rehearse at 4:30.
Yeah.
So we had to go eat dinner early and then head to the rehearsal hall, and we would rehearse for 2 to 3 hours. So we were just constantly together in this music.
But also the traveling, I didn't want to travel. And the thing later on, the thing that happened was I really wanted to make a difference in people's lives. where I could see their spiritual growth happening. And so when you're singing, that was so much fun. But when you're just going in, you're popping into a church and you're kind of doing a thing, and then you leave, you don't get to see the fruits of your labor, you know? And so I really felt like as I got near time to graduate, I thought, I really want to be in a church. I want to see the spiritual growth and spiritual formation of people that I'm working with, you know? And that was a big deciding factor.
So then what was your first job then, right out of
youth
school?
Ministry.
Okay.
You know, and I know a lot of guys, back then especially, I think a lot of guys used youth ministry. It was kind of the first place that you would start. You know, it was like a stepping stone. But now it's not as much that way. So I just kind of assumed that's what I needed to do. I needed to go into youth ministry and worship ministry at that point. Worship ministry is what I ultimately ended up doing later. But at that time, I was just not thrilled with the thought of going into a church as a music minister with the piano and organ and singing the hymn.
And
that just was not me. You know, I was I was a band. I was playing in the band and doing all this kind of stuff with you know, more rock and roll type music.
So
and
like I'm thinking like you're more of a performer, not a director.
Not a, I didn't want to do the, you know, the da 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 da.
No, that's what I did.
And it was just, I just really was. I was so put off by the music in church world. We were just so far behind in our times. That was huge part of ministry for me, was leading in the music area. And so I did youth ministry for 5 years, but I was even talking to Jason today, and I was saying I built the whole youth ministry around music. I'm not saying it's the way you should do it, but that's what I did for the first 5 years. Yeah. I really built our whole youth program around music production, and then after that I went and preached for a little while, and then I still just kept gravitating back to music, and I just wanted to be back in music. So then that's when I started the church in Orlando in 1998, and we moved down there, and I became the worship pastor. I was really conflicted though. Should I do worship or should I preach? Should I worship and preach? Because I did both of those things, but I didn't know which one that I really didn't know which one I wanted to do.
Ultimately, you started as worship.
I did worship for
minister and
12 years.
Michelle, what were you
12,
what were you doing during those first several years where Mitch was a children's pastor, the first church?
Well, the first church, when he was doing children and youth, I volunteered, but then we started having children.
Okay.
So Hunter came along, and I wasn't able to help quite as much until the kids got older.
All right.
With Hunter and Hannah.
Yeah,
so I was just being a mom.
Yeah, you're busy. You're busy raising the kids.
Raising the babies.
You're on your first job. You're just starting to take off, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And Michelle's being a good support for you.
It was a great church too. We had the best first church really experience. I was at Hillendale Christian Church in Lexington, Kentucky. So that was also my hometown area, or near my hometown area and stuff. So my mom and dad worked there, and so we had the support of family and stuff there too.
Yeah,
and it was great.
So then '98, you come down to Orlando. You were part of a group that started River Run.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reason behind the big move?
I didn't really care where we moved, as long as I could be a part of starting a church from scratch and really trying to be a church for people who had given up on church, but not given up on God. We really wanted to be a church that you could come and before that, I mean, I'm wearing a suit and tie every day, you know. I was going to the hospitals and visiting people. I was burying people in funerals, and I was just like, this is killing me. This is not what I wanted to do.
Now I was leading worship, but worship was, good morning, everyone. Please turn into your hymnals to page 435, and we'll sing verses 1, 3, and 4 of Standing on the Promises. And then you get up there, and then, so it just...
So that's what a question I was going to have for you is what was your feeling behind the move? Because for me on the outside, like the move from Kentucky to Florida, that's a big move.
Well, I'll tell you.
What was your feelings at like?
Let me take this first.
Okay.
Because we had two opportunities. We had multiple opportunities, but these two, we had opportunity to plant a church in the Schaumburg area of Chicago.
Yep.
And we had an opportunity to plant a church in Orlando, Florida. And so we went to Schaumburg, Illinois, in Chicago area in January of 1998.
Yeah.
And then we came to Orlando in January of 1998, and we just felt the clear call
Clear
of God
calling
Yeah.
of God.
that we
bet.
needed to
We
be in
needed to be in
Orlando,
Florida.
not in Chicago. And I mean, it was really, I mean, it was probably, I was 29 years old. She was 27. We were kids,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's a long time ago.
A long time ago, and I think you made. Well, I'm glad that you made the choice
Oh,
because
I loved it.
I
And
mean,
we
you know,
just-
all roads have led to where we are now.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm so very happy. But
Me too. I love it.
Michelle, like, what was the overall feeling when you were preparing to make this move, start this church for you?
I was excited because the traditional way of doing church just didn't feel relevant anymore. And I was excited to start a new adventure. Okay. And the kids were still young. They hadn't, they were like, Hunter was just in kindergarten. So that was a good point. If we're going to make a big move like that, the kids were still little. So it was a great.
Right. So they hadn't had friends
Right.
for
they
years.
haven't gotten established to where
in
it would be
school.
difficult to move them.
Yeah, Hannah was 4 and Hunter was 5.
Hunter was 5.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the process of starting the church in Orlando.
So we had a group, it was called CFNCE, Central Florida New Church Evangelism Association or something like that. They changed the name to now it's Florida Church Planters.
Yeah, that's a little
It's
catchier
like-
and rolls
it's
off
like,
the
wow. I mean, I
tongue,
still, had trouble saying that. But that group, it was a group of a whole bunch of different Christian churches, independent Christian churches in the state of Florida that would pool their resources together. And then when they collected enough resources, they would go and they would hire a pastor to start a brand new church in a growing area. That's kind of how it started.
Okay.
We're doing that right now. We're doing that even today. We're help out Florida church planners. We're going to give a little bit of money for that, but all the churches kind of pile in some money. And then we have a church starting right down the road here in Sarasota, a Coastline Christian Church. And so it's the same kind of process. Then for us, what we had to do is we had to raise like half of our salary and then some over a 3-year period of time. So we had money, sort of half the money to come in to start the church, but then we had to go out and raise the other half of it.
Okay.
And so that's what we did. I mean, I went out. So for the first 6 months, I moved here in July the 1st of 1998 in Orlando. And then we didn't start the church till January the 10th, 1999 is when the church actually launched. So I had 6 months. During that 6 months, I was on a plane or driving or flying somewhere, and I was going to every church of any pastor that I knew or anybody that would listen to me, and I would just tell them about the vision and what we were doing. For instance, in Kentucky, and there's a church on every corner in Kentucky. At the time, this is what is almost 30 years ago. But at the time, where I was at, there was one church for every 250 people. That's how many churches there were in my area. When we moved down to, there's one church for every 550 people. When we moved to Oviedo, Florida, there was one church for every 5,550 people. That just gives you, that's how much the area had grown and the need was there. So I really didn't care about where we lived. I just wanted to be where there was a whole bunch of people, that there weren't really a lot of churches there, and that there was just this open harvest, so to speak, for people. And that turned out to be just such an amazing adventure for us.
Yeah, so you came down, you're the worship pastor
Right.
at River Run. Michelle, what are you doing at this time?
Once the kids got in school, I literally did everything because I had the ability to not have to focus so much on a career at the beginning. Okay. So I was a substitute teacher. I did some modeling and runway modeling. I worked for Disney and was a Jungle Cruise skipper and a pirate master.
You gotta do that.
So I was told by my wife when I was doing research for this interview that you did have a diverse career. I
did.
Many different areas.
Many different areas.
But you were a pirate. That's the most favorite.
The pirate was my favorite.
Which I think you have to talk like a pirate.
Talk like a pirate?
Yeah, I think you have to do a little.
Well, I can be telling you this. I was a pirate there at Disney, and I did work on the Black Pearl recruiting recruits for Jack Sparrow and his crew, and I loved every minute of it. I got to tell pirate stories and sing pirate songs, and I guess you could tell I love entertaining.
She would go. She'd do like a 10-hour shift or 12-hour shift at Disney, a long shift.
Was working multiple jobs at the time,
she'd
too.
come home and we'd have dinner, and she'd be sitting around the table and the kids are there, and she'd just be talking like a pirate, and we'd just start smiling. And
So I
she
hadn't
goes,
gotten
"Well,"
out of character
She hadn't
yet.
gotten out of character yet because she'd been doing it all day long.
so you didn't even know you were
she
doing
didn't
it.
I didn't even know I was
she
doing it.
So we're going, honey, you're talking like a pirate again.
And at the time I worked at Disney as a pirate master, I was also a merchandiser for a watch company with my territory was Central Florida. So I would work a shift at Disney, change clothes out of my costume, and then head to like a Florida Mall or Millennia Mall. And one day I was talking to a manager after a very long shift at Disney, and she just was smiling and smiling. And I said, I'm still talking like a pirate, aren't I? She said, yes, you must have just come straight from Disney, didn't you? I said, yes, I did.
That's fun.
I'll stop. But she's like, no, can you help some customers like that? Because that's just so
Oh, it was
amazing.
awesome. It was so much fun.
It was fun. Early on in ministry, before I started my actual career, I did a lot of fun things. Music teacher, private music teacher. I taught PE in the public school while the kids were little so they could come to school with me. It was great.
We were filling out paperwork for a mortgage one time, and they go, "What does your wife do?" I go, "She's a pirate."
A pirate.
Pirate.
And they go, "You're gonna have to explain that
Yeah.
a little bit more."
It was fun. It was a good time to
and
work
we got to go
at
to Disney
too.
anytime
It was-
we wanted
it
for
was
free.
good.
So
Yeah.
not anytime, but we got
Honestly, working for Disney, I was very shy, almost to the point of not being able to talk to people when Mitch and I first got married. And when you're in ministry, that's very difficult because I would just
Right.
get sick to my stomach if I had to actually have a conversation. So when I got the job at Disney, having to work as a character with the public, either at the Jungle Cruise or at the Pirates League, that really helped me come out of my shell. Just the Disney training, how to treat people, and just helping me be a character most of the time.
And she's a character,
And
all
I'm a
right.
character.
Yeah, and you love to perform.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. That's never changed.
And so at that time at River Run, are you singing too?
Yes.
Are you up on the work? So you're
Oh, yeah.
you're
Yeah,
the
Mitch
worship
and I-
leader. You're
Yes. I
so
was
you're still doing what you were doing
Yes.
back in college.
absolutely still singing
Still doing the same
together.
things. She knows. The one thing I love, she knows what I'm thinking in ministry before I even have to say anything. We've just been doing it for so long. She knows.
Someone can share an idea, and I automatically know if Mitch is going to like that idea or not like that idea.
We've just done it.
We've just done it for so long
We've been married
together.
35 years.
Yeah.
It's a long
And
time.
doing ministry all 35
and doing
years.
ministry, all 35 years. When I was a youth pastor, I was like, she's only 2 years older
I was
than some of the
19
kids. She's
when we
19
started
years
in
old,
youth
you know.
ministry.
Oh yeah, so some of the
some of that
like
was really-
16-year-olds
Yes.
and yeah.
Yeah.
I look back at that
we
now,
just-
and I'm so sorry. I was a child.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know what I was
Like I
doing.
said, we
know what
just
I was doing.
we grew up together. Really,
did.
I mean, we grew up together and learned a lot of things, and it's been good
Been
though.
a good life.
Really good,
Yeah.
really good.
So at River Run, you were worship pastor. You had a chance to become lead pastor there.
Yeah, I got demoted. In 2012, the senior pastor left River Run, and they asked me if I would take that role, and so I did. Kind of reluctantly, to be honest with you, because I really, really loved the music
Yeah.
world. And then I spent the next, I guess, from 2010 or 2012 to 2019 there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that, Michelle?
When
His transition, like from going from a worship pastor to the lead pastor.
I know it was sad for him because he did enjoy the music so much, but he just did such a good job, and that's right what the church needed at the time was
I
for
still
him.
miss the music a lot. Not enough to go back to it now, but that's like I like to have them throw me a bone once in a while.
Yeah. You
But-
get up here and play your guitar and
I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. It took me a while to get there though. It was so hard just because that was my whole life, and as the worship. And it took a while. It took a while to just figure out, I think this is what God's called me to really do at this season in my life, and I feel like, yeah.
So this is an interesting part. I don't know how deeply you want to get into this, but I know that there was a period of time right before COVID where you had stepped down and you started exploring other career options.
Yep.
I kind of like to just explore that a little bit with you. Like, what was your mindset? And I think it's an interesting story to tell about how you go from there to where you are now.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest times I think in my entire life. From probably 2017 to probably really 2021, those 4 years in that time frame, I was trying to figure out a lot about kind of who I am, like I was still struggling. I had helped the church get to a point of health. We had gone through some challenges at the church, and I'd helped the church get to a point of health, but I wasn't very healthy spiritually, emotionally. It was just a lot, and that kind of went along with that process. And I had an opportunity to do some other things outside of ministry, and I just kind of thought maybe my season of ministry was done. I really did. I thought I had an opportunity to make some money, to be honest with you, to make more than I would ever make in ministry, and so I took those opportunities and did that. And I came home every day, and I was absolutely miserable. I felt like I was Jonah. I felt like I'd been running away from God. And I told Michelle, I said, I've made the worst mistake in my adult life in leaving the church there.
Yeah, I think we all go through that, like, at that particular age. For whatever reason, I think
I was about
40s,
40-something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think because your 20s, you're growing up and you're trying to find your way, and what am I going to do? And then you do what you're going to do, and then there's almost like not like a second career, but just like, who am I? Because time starts to set in and you start to think, like, I'm not 20 anymore. There's a clock ticking, and what am I going to do the rest of my life?
And then when I made that change, and I was so miserable, I'd come home, I'd say, "Oh, I just can't believe I've been."
Yeah, what was that? What was that like, Michelle? I mean,
that was a tough time. I had settled into my career as a stylist and a color specialist, and so I was working long hours at the salon. And when Mitch would come home, I could just tell he wasn't happy with what he was doing.
After I'd left.
After he had left.
After
he had left
Yeah.
actual ministry. And so we just had to do a lot of self-reflection to figure out what does this look like next?
My identity.
Yeah.
This was a big thing here. My identity as a person was so wrapped up in being the pastor of the church that I lost Mitch in the process. Like, I lost me. And like, even after I resigned and stepped down, people would say, who are you? Oh, I don't know who I am. I didn't even know my whole life was centered around being a pastor, and then my identity had been wrapped up in that. And I needed that time to realize that I'm not Mitch the pastor. I'm Mitch, a child of the King. And I think that was one of the most powerful lessons. It took me learning that. And then, but even though I was miserable coming home every day from this secular job, I just really leaned into God in ways that I never had before. I mean, there were days I'd pull the car off on the side of the road because I couldn't see because I was crying. And I was apologizing to God, like I had run away from him. I had abandoned my call. And from the very beginning. And then the funniest thing happened, not funniest thing, but COVID hit.
Yeah, I was going to say,
And
then
I
COVID.
lost my job. But when I lost my job, I went home to Michelle and said, guess what? I lost my job today. And it was so freeing because it was like, it was just so freeing. And I really felt like I was scared because I'd never had an opportunity. I'd never had anything like that happen before in my life. I know how to relate to people now who have in the church, and it gives me a greater appreciation for what they go through and what they're feeling, because I had never gone through that before, even though I would try to help people. But I did things that year during COVID. Like I got in my car and drove around the state of Alabama at banks because I got this opportunity to put stickers on the floors during COVID for the 6 foot apart, stay 6 feet apart.
Stand here.
And I made more money doing that than I did ever in ministry. It was crazy. I was going around just going to banks and putting stickers. I'd measure them out, put a sticker on the floor, 6 foot. I'm going, this is what I'm doing now,
right.
God. Like, how did I get here? How did this even happen? And then that job dried up, and then I took my tractor. We had bought a little hobby farm, and so I took my tractor and would literally drive around the neighborhood and ask people if they needed any work done. And then when that dried up, I went and worked as a project manager for remodeling this studio, and then all the while I kept just praying and praying and praying, but I didn't want to move. We had just bought this farm. I just bought this house. Our daughter and grandkids were, we had 27 chickens. We were getting ready to buy goats.
Our
and all
daughter
this
lived
stuff.
right down the street from us, so coming home from work, I passed her house every day.
And then Darren Key from CFR, and I was even doing some work for CFR too. I love that part. Darren said, hey, look, you need to get back into ministry. I said, I know I want to. COVID was going on. It was really strong at that time.
And
you guys
churches were closed.
Right,
a lot of churches were closed
right.
down.
They were.
And so I couldn't even travel and speak or do those kinds of things. But Darren said, hey, there's a church in Cocoa Beach that's looking for a pastor, and you should go online, look at it. It's probably not where you're going to go, but you should just go, just kind of help them out a little bit. So I looked on the website, and I was going, I don't think that's a good match for me. But right underneath of that was First Christian, which is now Centerpoint.
Now Centerpoint,
was
right.
First Christian Church of Venice. Well, we always
that's a great one.
we wanted to live in Venice. So our son was stationed in Venice, Italy, and in the Air Force. And so we went to visit him. And while we were there, we'd go to take day trips even to Venice, Italy. And we were just like, oh my gosh, Venice, Italy is so amazing, And we even said, one day maybe we could live in Venice, Florida, maybe Venice. So that's
we
what
could live in Venice, Italy.
I mean, yeah,
One day
I
we
didn't even
could
know
live in
about
Venice.
Venice.
Well,
I
you
actually
just
didn't even
said
know
Venice.
about.
Yeah,
I
maybe
just
one
said
day
Venice.
we could live in Venice.
And so, I see that down there, Venice. Where's Venice? There's a Venice, Florida, and I know Florida. I mean, I just didn't even know about Venice. And I looked on there and I thought, it's a cute little beach town church, And then I thought, I kind of watched online for some of the stuff, and I thought, I think I can probably help that church a little bit. Maybe they need some help, and I could help them. And so I contacted Ross Boucher.
Yeah, Ross was a co-leader on.
He was the co-leader. He
yep.
and Sue Miller, I believe it was.
Sue Miller and Ross Boucher were.
And so I contacted them, and they called me, and then just one conversation led to another conversation, and then we ended up moving here. But before we get to Michelle moving here, I just remember when we were in the moving van coming down here, I looked at Michelle, I go, we're moving to Venice. Not Venice, Italy, but Venice,
Italy.
Florida.
Yeah.
We just weren't very specific with God.
Enough. We should have
You got to be
said.
careful with what you ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Michelle, what was your mindset at this time?
To moving here?
To moving here to Venice.
I was a much harder sell than Mitch was because I had established my career as a stylist for 15 years, working with the same girls, having the same clients. Hannah lived on my way home so I could drive home from work, and she had 2 children now, so I could stop by and see her and visit the grandkids. And then I'd come home to our little hobby farm, and I had my dogs and my chickens. And so when he said, we're going to move.
Well, I didn't say we're going to
Well,
move
no, he
like
didn't.
that.
He said, I
When there's
really think that we need to check this place out. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So it just took me, I came around, of course, because here I
Yeah,
am.
right.
But it took me a while because I was so established where I was. God had to work on my heart a little bit longer. One of the visits that we did when we were doing the interview process, which took a long time, and I'm grateful for, because it took me a long time to come
Yeah,
to
we started
terms
around
with
to
it.
mindset.
like
It
in
did.
June or something
Yes.
like that, and didn't even make the final decision until October. It was
It was
Right,
a
yeah, I
long
seemed like a long
process.
It
process.
did. I
and that-
remember going through it.
If it had been a short process, I don't know that
I don't
she
know that I would have
come
come around.
Yeah,
But in one of the meetings with the people who were on the search committee, it was such a lovely time, and everyone was so delightful. And Mitch and I got in the car, and I'm like, oh, dang it. And he's like, what? He says, I really like those people.
yeah.
So it felt so good here. It felt different than any church we've been in before.
It is.
And I still was reluctant because we had purchased what was supposed to be our forever home. That's
Right.
where we were
Yeah.
going to retire. We had to rehome my chickens. I did bring my dogs with me, but it was a process to get here. But I'm so glad that I didn't stand in my own way, that I didn't stop something that would have been, it has been such a blessing, and we're right where we need to be.
Yeah, and it's really been remarkable from my perspective to watch, because I was here. I was an elder at the time, and we had put together that search team. So we had picked those people as an elder leadership team to be on that search team, and to watch it go from where we were then to where we are now has been a remarkable ride.
It has been.
That's one of the things I kind of want to talk about. What do you attribute the remarkable growth? What do you attribute it to?
Well, when we came, I think when we came here, there were several things that I think there were some really good foundational bones to the church. But I felt like there were a few really missing components. And that's not, I don't want that to,
No,
we have
just-
great
yeah.
leaders, there have been great leaders. I'm stepping on the shoulders of great leaders before me. So I don't want to make it sound like, that they were doing something wrong, because there's probably another leader behind me someday that's going to say, I think there were some things
great foundation
some
and-
great
yeah,
foundation.
yeah.
So I don't want to,
No,
but
and I've never taken that as
yeah, but there were a few things that I saw just
Like
from
that.
my experience in church planting and what I've done and been around that world a lot more, that I thought, I want to treat this as a church plant. I really wanted to treat this as a church plant, because a lot of times when we're in a revitalization project of a church, which is what First Christian Church of Venice was, now Centerpoint, it was a revitalization project. And so I looked at a few things and said, people who move to Venice, they are largely disconnected from their families in a lot of ways. Most people's families don't live here in Venice. People have moved to Venice, and their families are up north and other places. That's a large majority of it. In fact, I did a very unscientific poll on a Sunday not too long ago. I just said, how many people grew up in Venice? And there was like one or two hands. How many people grew up in Florida?
Yeah.
And there was like 5 or 6 hands. The rest of the 1,000 of us moved here from somewhere else. And I think they crave community. And so one of the first things that I saw was we need to get people together in groups, in smaller groups, where people can really get to know each other and spend some time getting to know each other and getting to know the Word of God. And that was a huge piece. We also had great musicians. I mean, the church had great musicians, but there wasn't really a cohesiveness to worship. So it was just some tweaks. I mean, it was just some minor tweaks. It really wasn't even major. It was just some minor tweaks in the worship area that I think became an outreach for us. And then the other thing, I just said, I'm going to try to do the best sermons. I'm going to put so much effort into that. That's what I'm going to spend a lot of effort in. in putting together sermons and doing it in a way that is very trying to be as authentic as I can be, and just as real as I can be, and answering the real questions of life, and not just being, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy how, like, when I think back on that, and I think that there's been a cultural shift too since COVID. We were a solid church of a couple hundred. We would have 250 on a Sunday, and then COVID hit, and we shut down, and we tried to open back up, but we were probably only running half, and we had just gone through this transition where we had graduated a bunch of kids in the summer right before COVID, and so we were down kids. It warms my heart now. This happens quite often where I'll be sitting over there in worship, and I'll just look up here on stage and listen to the music, and I turn around and I look out, and I see it's packed with like 300 people. And it just warms my heart. It makes me
and a lot of kids,
me emotional.
like a lot of kids, right.
And it's great. So, I think there's been a switch too, that people during COVID, they wanted to come back. They wanted that connection, and I think that's been great.
And there was a natural shutdown time. So, like, whenever I've gone in and helped to restart a church, we would oftentimes close the church down for a period of time to give it this time of kind of closure, and then you relaunch the church. We didn't do that here, but COVID kind of presented itself in that way because it was kind of already shut down.
Right.
And then one of the other things was, I think because a lot of my pastor friends, they were so exhausted leading through COVID. They were so worn out that people were dropping like flies from the ministry, and they were so worn out. For me, here I am. I've spent the year of COVID putting stickers on bank floors, changing out toilets, moving dirt in people's yard with my tractor, and I spent, that was my COVID year. So when God actually gave me the chance to get back in the ministry, I come back in, I'm like, woohoo! I was so excited, where all my buddies who are pastors are like, I'm so exhausted, and I would talk to, I think that catalyst of that for so many people, because I was just radically transformed after that year. I'm just a different person. I would never, ever, ever want to go through 2019 again in my life.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I don't think anybody does.
No one
I would never want to trade that year of my life for anything. And that's not COVID related. That's just in my own personal. COVID just exacerbated it. But man, it was a powerful year.
Well, and I know you've said this before in your ministry series about. Growth grows. It grows in the valley. You don't
fruit grows in the valley,
fruit
not
grows
on
in the
the
valley,
mountaintops.
not in the mountaintops. And you have to go through those, through those times to get there.
Yeah.
What, Michelle? What do you see? What are you most excited about for the future of Centerpoint?
Oh, the growth, honestly, the new building. I think what the future holds with our expansion, that's very exciting.
I'm so looking forward to that.
Yes.
I wonder, what is it going to be like when you're up on the new stage and the new auditorium at the new worship center?
I'm really excited about that. That's exciting to me.
Can you paint us a little picture of what you'd like? Are there going to be? Do we have more singers? Do we have what?
I don't know. I mean, at the beginning, we'll probably have that wonderful core team that we have right now.
Yeah.
So talented, so devoted. And this, because we're so tight, we're a family. The worship team is absolutely a family.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing to lead worship for the first time on a new stage with a family that we've already developed.
Yeah, I think that one of the things, like when I look back, I think we can attribute, nothing moves here on earth without the hand of God. But I think God moved you guys into here. You're gracious to say that our music was good. We did have good music, but you came in, Michelle, and you elevated, and it's just gotten better. I think that's done at your sermons. You're a charismatic leader. It's just, getting to see this rise has been incredible. What are you most excited for, Mitch, about this future expansion?
The thing, I honestly don't care about buildings. I really don't. I love this room that we're in right here. I love it. It's, and I think one of the things about our church is that it feels like you're coming home. I mean, it feels like a home. It feels like a home. It doesn't feel like this corporate, industrial, big church thing. It doesn't. It just feels like you're coming home. So I like that really well. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really crazy about the idea of building a new building. That sounds crazy. I probably shouldn't say that on the podcast. But the reality is that there's so many people who are hungry for God's word. And I really truly believe that we have a message at Centerpoint that I think people are hungry for in the message of Jesus, but also in the way that we do church, in the way that we live this out. And so because of that, we just don't have any more space. And so the thing I'm the most excited about is being able to live this out as a whole body of believers with a whole bunch of other people that haven't got to experience that and can't even experience it, with our limitations of our building. So that's the part I'm the most excited about. I don't really care about lighting and staging and all that. That's all fun. That's all good. That's icing on the cake. But the real power behind, I think, what we have at Centerpoint is that we take Jesus really, really seriously, but we don't take ourselves that seriously. And we have a good time. We are conservative in nature, but we're not legalistic. We're a church for people who have given up on church or never been to church.
Yeah.
And so I think it's amazing, and I want as many people who have been hurt, who have been wounded by the church, or just don't understand, or they've misunderstood what the church is about.
Yeah,
I want them to experience what we have here, and so that's the part I'm excited about having the new building.
Me too. I'm excited, and I've always, that you always see John 3:16 at the football games, and it's up there, and it's great. I'm not knocking that, but the follow-up, John 3:17, that's my favorite. Jesus didn't come here to judge the world. He came here to save it through him. And I think that speaks volumes. He didn't come here to judge. He came here, he lived in flesh, and he knows us now. And he came here to save us through him. And so it's great.
I think there's such a fine line. I think people misunderstand that you can have this thing that you live for, that your standards of living, but every one of us fall short of that.
Right.
And so we still stand for the things that are godly and holy, and that we want to live for these things.
But we're never going to be able to live up to it.
But we're never going to be that way. And I think one of the challenges, I've been trying to process this for years now, but I think one of the challenges is people feel like they're abandoning the truth of God if they lean into people who are deeply troubled with sin in their lives. They feel like they're abandoning the truth of God if they embrace them, or they feel like they have to be somehow liberal or something over here to where anything goes. And there's just, you can have both.
You can have both.
You can absolutely be a church that stands for the truth of God's word, and then still loves people unconditionally without judgmental.
Yeah, and we're going to strive. We're going to keep walking it that way, but we're going to. You may stub your toe and trip and fall, and
we want to be there,
or stumble a little, or
exactly.
Right.
We want to be. I always heard that the church is one of the worst at shooting their own wounded, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the church is not a country club for the saints. It's a hospital for the wounded. And I had a preacher tell me one time, is if you preach to the broken hearted, you'll always have an audience. And so I think that's true. We talk about all of us, our own brokenness. And I think that's one of the things I love about this church. More than I don't want to say more than any other church I've been in, but the thing I love about our church so much is that I think we're starting to get that in our culture and understand that in our DNA, that we're running hard after Jesus. We're running hard after him and living like him, and yet at the same time, we know not everybody's at that level. We know not everybody's and we know everybody messes up, and so we still embrace them and we still love them.
Yep.
They're a part of our church and they're part of our fellowship, and that's part of how we're growing. AA, I mean, like AA is huge. How many people do we have? I don't even know how many people we have.
I don't know either.
Here throughout the week. I mean, it's in the hundreds.
Right, 100, and I think you've had 1,500 on the board before, like people that meet here weekly, but I think that includes worship as well.
I think so, yeah.
So,
I'm not sure.
But still, you cut out, even if you cut out 900 on our biggest worship day, you're still looking at 500-600 people that are coming onto this campus at some point.
It's so great, and they're just our church is filled with a lot of the people that come to AA. It's great.
I'm very excited about our future. I'm glad we had this chance to sit down. Just a couple more things. We're here in Venice. What do you guys do on your time off? What's your favorite thing to do in Venice?
Okay, well, all right. My favorite thing to do, I've used to travel. I've used to travel the world. I don't even like to go. If I go to Sarasota now, it feels like I'm going on vacation.
I have
or
to beg
something.
him to go to Sarasota with
Like
me.
I don't want to go anywhere. I go to the church. I go to the beach. And for us, we have a little swimming pool in the backyard. And so my favorite thing to do is to get some sun and float around like a lazy river in our little pool. We just go around in circles in this little pool, and we just float around in the little pool, and we talk to each other. So it's when we catch up. It's where we catch up. And we're not watching TV. We're not meeting. We turn our phones off, and we just float around the pool. That's probably my favorite thing. I don't know. Your favorite thing is probably going to Target.
Yeah.
But
All right. So,
I mean,
what is your favorite thing?
I really embrace.
Love going to Target.
I do like going to Target, but I also love to embrace the fact that Venice is a tourist community, and I enjoy walking Venice Avenue. I enjoy going to the pier. I enjoy. Again, I worked at Disney with a lot of tourists, so I really love people watching in Venice.
Yeah.
And just seeing the variety of people that come in and out of our little town here.
All right. So real quick, who's the best cook?
Mitch is.
Mitch.
Absolutely.
I don't think so.
I don't like to cook anymore. Now that I just don't like to cook.
Yeah, I've lost my touch too.
Yeah.
I used to
bake.
when she was working at Disney and the kids were at home. I did almost all the cooking because she wasn't able to.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a pretty good cook then, but now that the kids are grown and everybody's out, and it's Michelle and I, we're just like,
Let's go to Publix.
let's go to Publix.
What are we going to get? I don't know. Let Publix tell us when we
let
get
Publix
there.
tell us what we're going to get when we get there. Yeah, I've gotten kind of lazy on my cooking. I got cooked for you the other day, and I thought it was the worst ribs I've cooked. I was so disappointed.
Yeah, we've had some good dinners together.
Yeah, we have.
So, yeah, don't be disappointed about.
Mitch is a good cook.
one
I like
bad
to
one.
bake.
Yeah.
I will bake the cakes for my grandkids.
All right. Favorite genre of movies.
Oh, anything where something's getting blown up, or a dinosaur's eating somebody, or a guy like Indiana Jones is.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be my favorite.
Yeah. And
or
Michelle.
Sci-fi action.
sci-fi space.
Yeah.
Sci-fi
I've always-
action.
I've known that about Michelle for quite a while, that you love sci-fi and action movies.
I have never
And
had to
you're
watch
not-
The Notebook.
Right, that you're not into like the
I'm
Notebook.
not watching
or,
that.
Yeah. One day Michelle was gone and her dad was at the house, and we were both sitting on the couch like a Sunday afternoon. And we were supposed to be watching football, but somehow or another we flipped over and we got onto like the
It's like
what was
a
it,
Hallmark
the Hallmark
channel.
channel, and we're watching this love story thing with her dad and I. Like, we're sitting on the couch and tears is running down her face.
I come home from work.
And Michelle
Like,
comes
what
over
are
and
you
she goes,
guys doing?
"What are you watching?" I
What
go,
are you
"We're watching
watching?"
football."
Yeah.
What's happening here?
Oh my gosh, yeah, but we don't have to. I don't have to. The only time I ever watched a romance movie was with her dad. So we.
That's
yeah, we
great.
don't-
Let's set the record straight. There's been, I've heard talk that the reason we moved the services was so that we can get out earlier before football. Is there any
There
truth to that
is-
rumor?
There is absolutely no truth to that rumor.
That's what I thought.
However, someone mentioned that to me that was a good reason for it, and I thought I didn't think about that honestly at all. I
Yeah.
just thought I was just trying to balance the services out.
It's
and the
just a
reason I even had it at
coincidence.
8:30 was the reason I have it at 8:30 was really for the band. I was thinking about them, but then I think that 11:30 is just a little too late for people, and I think this will balance it out. But football's another added bonus to it. I think that'll be.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good. Hey, speaking of rumors, there was a rumor that we are going to have a Starbucks in our new building.
Oh, there was?
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, that's not. I don't even know where that came from. It probably came because we are going to have a Chick-fil-A. But anyway, I'm just kidding.
Right out there on the corner.
Yeah. Let's start that
Yeah,
rumor.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would
Chick-fil-A.
go over
Everybody
real
will be,
well.
everybody will be packing this place out. But no, there's no Chick-fil-A or no Starbucks in it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming
Absolutely.
out, for sharing your stories with us, for spending a little
our
time
pleasure.
letting our congregation get to know you a little bit better. Appreciate your time. I so look forward to what God has in store for us in the future as we move, as we transition from here to the new worship center. I'm just so excited, and I can't say it enough. I just love you guys. Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Todd.
for being
thanks.
here with us.
Thank you. Love you
Thank
too,
you.
buddy.
Thank you.